Hey everybody, Brian Zane here to give you my thoughts and predictions going into this Saturday's Royal Rumble PLE. But before I do that, I do need to address a couple of big stories that came down the pike this week. Now, my house recently spent a whopping 9 days without any electricity, but there was still a lot of electrifying news happening in the world of WWE as we get ready for the Royal Rumble. This is sure to be one of the most newsworthy weeks of 2024. We're only getting started here, folks. We're only in the month of January. They announced that beginning in January of next year, 2025, Raw is going to begin streaming live on Netflix. This feels like a huge step for WWE. I mean, I think WWE, going the way of other sports leagues and having live streaming, they're doing their shows on live streaming platforms beyond just, the premium events. I think that's huge for WWE. I mean, Netflix is so deeply ingrained into the global viewing structure. It's how we watch so many of our favorite shows and movies. And I feel that this is going to be a great partnership between WWE and Netflix. Now, wouldn't this be the greatest rib of all time if Netflix decided to just arbitrarily cut Raw like they do so many of their other popular shows? It is, at minimum a 5-year deal, at most a 20-year deal for $500 million a year. Get that bag, WWE. I mean, it's funny to think about all the attempts that Vince McMahon made in the previous, 40 years to try and make wrestling mainstream and cool and all that stuff, and especially in the last 20 years after the boom period died down, all the flailing that Vince McMahon did and WWE did to try and be culturally relevant with pop culture and everything. But really, it never seemed to go beyond just, let's get a celebrity in here and have them wrestle a match. But like Nick Khan comes in and just drastically changes the whole way WWE seems to do business. When you think of how much they have expanded their reach and really broadened their empire under Nick Khan, it's pretty drastic. I think he's got to be one of the most pivotal hires that company has ever made, much less in the last 5 years or so. It's going to change the way we talk about wrestling. It's going to change the way we watch wrestling. I think it's going to change the way that other wrestling companies choose to do business. They're going to be on streaming with Netflix. They're going to be on broadcast TV with SmackDown, and they're on cable with Raw and NXT. They are truly dipping their toes into every major, viewing opportunity possible. And they're, of course, getting all this money for them. Good for them. If this can benefit the workers more than anything, then I'm all for it. I don't really care how much money WWE makes as long as it helps benefit, the people who are actually doing the work, the stars of WWE. I have Netflix. We watch Netflix all the time in this household. I don't have cable, so I think that having that access to it might motivate me and others to watch Raw more regularly. That raises another point, the fact that, we don't know for sure if Raw is going to stay on Mondays. They certainly didn't say as much in that initial announcement. They say, oh, just starting in 2025, it's going to be there. And they didn't say Monday Night Raw. They just said Raw. So, I think, Monday is the institution that has been the appointment day for viewing wrestling for so long. But I think now that we're kind of reaching out in this brave new world of streaming, I don't think those kind of archaic models of date release times, I think those are kind of out the window now. I think they can play with that and really put that show anywhere they wanted to. They could put it on any old weekday if they wanted. If they really wanted to put the screws to AEW, they could do it on Wednesday nights. And wouldn't that be something? But I think that this is just, it's a huge move. It's you think about where WWE's come from in the last several decades. The fact that WWE is kind of on the same level of other legitimate sporting brands and leagues to have those streaming rights and for them to be as expensive as they are. I think it's just a huge boon for WWE. I think it will change the way, I hope it changes the presentation. I hope we get something that's not just the same WWE product we've been getting just on this new platform. I hope that it allows them to really think outside the box. Then, of course, there was the big news that same day that Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, you might have heard of him, got added to the board of directors for TKO Group Holdings, which is the entity that owns WWE and UFC. So now The Rock is not just the most powerful man in Hollywood, he is now one of the most powerful men in all of professional wrestling, all of sports entertainment, and technically UFC as well. The meme that I've seen pop up of Triple H and The Rock on Shotgun Saturday night in like 97. And then you see the two of them standing next to each other, ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, this past week. It's a truly full circle moment. It is kind of interesting to think that, Triple H, after spending so much time trying to become his own man and become the leader of WWE all these years, then The Rock comes in and suddenly he has to answer to The Rock now. I think that's kind of ironic in a way, but I think that this can only lead to positive things, I think, for at least the brand recognition for TKO, for WWE, much like the initial news of WWE and UFC merging and forming TKO. I mean, I still have a lot of questions as to what that's ultimately going to mean for the consumer experience. I mean, we've seen obviously the expansion of the empire, so to speak, with Nick Khan as COO, and I'm feeling kind of a similar situation with The Rock being part of the board of TKO. Obviously, it's a big move for him, and I think it's going to lend a lot of credibility and more eyeballs toward what TKO is doing, because The Rock is already such a powerful man in media and entertainment, so it makes sense that he's going to be part of this. It just means, what will his role be specifically, what his contributions will be. Obviously, he is part of this WrestleMania season now, and I'm wondering, how much of that's going to influence, per se, the booking of The Rock going forth in WWE. We'll have to look at that as we head toward WrestleMania. If this kind of news leads to a bigger brand presence for WWE, for wrestling in general, I think that's great. I think the news like this, especially the Netflix deal, I think that has the potential to really rise a lot of ships. So we'll have to see what happens there, how it affects the greater wrestling sphere, how it's going to affect, the future of cable and satellite, because, with WWE being one of the many sports leagues that are doing something and trying to move toward live streaming more, where does that leave cable and satellite? Because people have been saying that whole industry has been dying a death for forever now, and it hasn't gone yet, but maybe stuff like this will be more of those dominoes that ultimately fall. But hey, there is still a whole Royal Rumble pay-per-view, or PLE, to talk about in this video, so that's what I'm going to do here. Just a reminder, I'm filming this on a Wednesday, so I don't know if they're going to add any more matches to the card between now and Saturday, but here is what we are working with at the moment. We've got, for the US Championship, Logan Paul defending against Kevin Owens, who won a tournament on SmackDown to claim the right for the #1 contendership here. I think this is going to be, it kind of reminds me of the Logan Paul-Seth Rollins matchup. Somebody who I think, in Kevin Owens, who is a really, really good hand, and really it's hard to think of him having a bad match with anybody, and you put him with somebody like Logan Paul, who has learned so much and has gotten so many of the small things in wrestling that a lot of crossover stars don't really get, and something a lot of regular wrestlers just period don't get. And so for Logan Paul to be in that position, I think he's done really well in that role. I think he's going to work well with Kevin Owens in this matchup. My prediction, however, is that Logan is going to retain, and there's something big, I think, in the works for Logan Paul going into WrestleMania over that championship.
You guys, I just realized something as I'm editing this video right now. If Kevin Owens wins the US Championship, I can bring this back! America, America.
For the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, Roman Reigns has a rare night of work as he takes on AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and LA Knight in a fatal four-way match. And really, the way they made that matchup, it's a classic heel tactic. Ooh, look at all these potential competitors and contenders for my belt. What if I beat them all up? And then that'll just solve the problem for me. No contenders at all, but oh, what a twist. It was GM Nick Aldis who made it a four-way in response to that. I think it's going to be a fun matchup here. But there's nothing changing the hierarchy here. There's no way that Roman Reigns is walking away without those belts. Full stop, because obviously the story is in either Roman versus Rock, Roman versus Cody, or maybe both of them, or something like that. It's not happening at the Royal Rumble. But I think that it's going to be a good match. It'll be fine. I think LA Knight's going to get a lot of love. I'm predicting he's the one taking the fall. If it's not him, it's AJ Styles taking the fall in this one, and Roman Reigns is going to retain. In the Women's Royal Rumble match, the question once again this year is, do they have enough women to actually fill out the 30 spots on this matchup? Obviously, they're going to dip from the NXT pool as well. Maybe a couple of lady legends. We don't know. But I think, when you look at the names, the number of the names who are confirmed for this matchup, especially compared to the men's Rumble, it's definitely certainly one of those ones where it's like they just don't want to announce them because, you know, why set up expectations? As far as who I think is going to win this matchup here, there's a lot of potential, like, interesting options. But I think it's going to come down to either Becky Lynch or Bayley. If I had to choose, I would say that Becky Lynch is going to win this one. She's going to win her second Royal Rumble match, and she will go on to challenge Rhea Ripley. And I believe that, you know, Bayley, you know, even though I don't think she's going to win, I still think she's got that match with Io Sky coming up for the championship there. So I think that she'll find her way, since they've been teasing that kind of like tension for so long now. It only stands to reason we're going to get a storyline reason that's not winning the Royal Rumble that will allow Bayley to ultimately challenge Io Sky for the title at Mania. Then there's the men's Royal Rumble match, which honestly in the last couple of weeks has become a lot more difficult to predict, because obviously CM Punk showing up late last year affected some people's plans and predictions of what was going to happen. Then The Rock showed up earlier this month and announced that he wants to sit at the head of the table. Maybe he just meant he wanted to be literally at the head of the table of board of directors, and that's it, but I doubt it. So that certainly complicates things as far as like what those main events are going to look like. Thinking about it and looking at the scene and where things can go, if you know the recent rumors as to what the Mania 40 main event might look like, if they're to be believed, I think it seems like a safe bet to me that CM Punk is going to win the Rumble. I think with the big return he had and all of the talk surrounding him, I mean, if The Rock didn't show up, people would still be talking about CM Punk being back right now. I think, ironically, if you think back to their history, The Rock showing up to kind of take some of CM Punk's thunder away, I think it's a very full circle moment. But I think that also this feels like a match for Punk to win, get that big return, like back in the Royal Rumble match, gets a big, hero's welcome, he wins, gets a big pop. And I think he's going to challenge Seth Rollins based on the story they've been telling with that. Obviously, Seth's knee is in question here, but it sounds like he's going to try and push through to continue to work WrestleMania. And I certainly hope that he can do that. So my bet is it's going to be Punk and Rollins during one of those nights of Mania main event. And then, of course, that leaves, where's Cody go? What's going to happen to his story? And I don't know if we're going to get that triple threat with, Roman and The Rock and Cody. That seems to be the rumor, the scuttlebutt. And I can kind of see that happening. I can definitely see a scenario where Cody fights his way into a triple threat with those two guys, with Roman and The Rock, and it becomes, a triple threat kind of similar to what we saw at WrestleMania's 20 and 30, where it's like there's one guy in that triple threat match who people really want to see win, and he might, and that's a whole story for another time. But like in this moment here, as far as who I think is going to win the men's Rumble, I think right now, it just seems to me, based on momentum and based on intrigue, that CM Punk winning seems like the right move for me. But those are just my thoughts, folks. And again, I apologize if I miss any matches that get added after this video is recorded, but what do you think is going to happen at the Royal Rumble on Saturday? Stay tuned for Sunday when I bring you my review of the Rumble show. And once, of course, that happens, then it's on the road to WrestleMania. It's going to be a really interesting season, and I cannot wait to see how the Royal Rumble event shakes out, what happens at that show, what kind of surprises we might be getting in the Rumble matches. I mean, that's always lends itself to some terrific moments historically, and I cannot wait to see what happens this Saturday. But what do you think is going to happen? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to Wrestling with Regret if you haven't. Hit that bell icon for all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.